Today we are interviewing one of our incredible, inspiring lunar wisdom authors, the beautiful Ruth Fae. Now, Ruth is a copywriter, editor, and writing coach, and she believes in the magic of storytelling to heal, nurture, and create connection through the sharing of wisdom of our individual and collective experiences. Through her business, Fae Blood Publications, Ruth helps people to tell their stories and speak their authentic truth. She is a believer in the unlimited potential of co-creation, and she works energetically with her clients to break through their writing blocks and capture their own magic. Ruth intuitively supports all her clients to express themselves with courage and confidence. Through her study of the lunar cycles, Ruth works with her ever-growing understanding of the intricacies of the universe to create ease and flow in her business and her life. Ruth shares her life of love and mayhem with her 4 children, which is pretty amazing. I've got 2, and that's plenty. Her partner, his 3 children, so she's pretty amazing. A singing Siberian Husky and an adorably naughty Spoodle puppy. So, Ruth, thank you so much for coming and joining us in the Lunar Wisdom book project. I am so in love with the moon, which you know. So, I know I've given everybody a little bit of a potted photo who you are, but can you tell us a little bit more about you and what actually excited you about becoming a contributor to Lunar Wisdom?
Yes. Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to do this with you, Tracy. It's super exciting. Um, I have never done a multi-author book collaboration before, so this is really new to me. But it's something that has been popping up in my awareness over the last little while. And I've sort of been keeping a look around, and then when I saw yours, and then we had an initial chat about what your vision was for the book and what you wanted to bring into it, it just felt like an amazing fit, and something that I really wanted to be involved with, mainly because I've been working with the lunar cycles for the last probably just over 18 months. I'm part of a lunar networking group, which is amazing, like the conversations that we have and the guidance that we can give each other and that sort of thing. Um, And initially, when I started doing it, I was a bit like, what is this and how does it work? And it took a while to begin to actually understand the flow and the cycles and, how the moon's doing its thing, but then how that affects each person individually. But after particularly that first year of doing it every single month and meeting at the full moon and the new moon, and learning more about it and being open to these things, I now can clearly see how the lunar cycles affect my life, but also how I can use them to bring that ease and flow into my work, into my relationships, into my family, and into my life in general. And I think it's really important that we spread the word about this, basically.
Yes. Oh my goodness, you just gave me tingles. I completely agree. Very similar story as well for me, that working with the lunar cycles and really immersing myself in it, even before I
Mm,
started working with my clients with it, allowed me to recognize patterns, like energetic patterns that were coming up.
yes. Yeah.
Um, you know, it's like when sometimes you feel like, oh, why am I so emotional? Why is everybody around me getting so cranky? Why is
Yeah.
everything going wrong? And then you look outside and you're like, oh, it's one of the quarter
Oh,
moons.
yeah.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
I know. And it's really interesting, because we've just gone through the dark moon phase and being aware of that in advance. I was born on a dark moon, and I work with an intuitive business coach who also works with the moon cycles. And she had said, just be aware because the energies for you are heightened at this time. And if you feel that you need to retreat or, there's many challenges will come up and all these sorts of things. So, and those 3 days of last week were absolutely, there was a lot of challenges family wise. which then, relates to work, because when I'm busy doing stuff with the kids, then I'm a bit less focused on work. And so that then brings up a lot of stuff for me. But what that meant for me was, over those 3 days, I could actually go, you know what? I understand why this is happening, and it's okay that it happens. And if I need to retreat, or I need to work on my writing rather than working for clients, then I'll manage that. And that's okay. And to get that, I guess it's like a energetic universal permission to go, it's
Mhm.
okay to rest, or to slow down, or to pause for a minute, rather than push on, push on, push on, keep going, keep going.
Yeah.
Because I would have ended up a basket case if I'd pushed on through all of what was happening. Yeah, it's just that awareness that I didn't have before. And I think it's really important for us to be aware of that, and to bring that into our lives as much as we can.
Yes, I love
Um,
that, and I think that dovetails in so well with what you said earlier about, I really wanna get the word out there. I think this is so important for everybody to know, because
mm,
when we understand and when we have this awareness that it's okay, that we're part of this energetic cycle that goes up and down, like,
yeah,
sometimes we do need to slow down and retreat and take that time to be with ourselves, right? That we can't just be
yeah.
hustling and grinding constantly,
Hmm.
because we burn out. And there are so many people at the moment who are feeling burnt out in their businesses,
Mm,
in their home lives, because again, as you said, it's all interwoven, right? What happens at
yeah.
home shows up in your work. What happens at work shows up in your
Hmm.
home. And giving yourself that permission, having that universal permission to slow down, to
Yeah,
take a couple of days to just replenish and nourish yourself,
yeah.
brings so much freedom, brings so
It
much.
does. It really does. And I love that, like I said, initially I kind of didn't get it. Like, I was open to it, but I didn't get it. But I think, so many times when you come across something new, you're kind of like learning to ride a bike. Like, you fall off your bike, or whatever, you can't pedal to begin with, and it's all new and it's a bit scary and you're not really sure what's going on. But the beautiful thing about working with the moon is that it's not really scary, and you can bring the practice into your life as much or as little as you need to. So initially, for me, it was a networking thing. But then I started learning, so then I started looking into it more, and now I'm tracking the daily moon on my phone. So I have a look and go, okay, this is what's going on today, and where is the moon sitting, and what does that mean energetically? And not that I do it every day, but it's there if the wheels begin to fall off, or I'm feeling something really strongly. And it's gentle. It's a really gentle way of working that just simply allows us to be and be present in a given moment, not always be looking ahead all the time. And I've,
Mm.
I've found a huge amount of value in that.
I love that. I think one of the things that's really important that we haven't specifically said, but I feel like you've touched on this a few times. You started out with a lunar business networking group
Yes.
where women
Yes.
were coming together, not specifically to be witchy or anything like that, but to network in your
Mm,
businesses, but using the lunar cycles as an energetic guide for
yeah.
how you could incorporate that into business. And I think, while we do, and in fairness, the Lunar Wisdom book certainly does bring some magic into the practices of working with the moon, that you don't have to be witchy to work with the moon.
That's yeah. Yeah, that's true. And the lady who started their networking, I remember her saying to me at one stage that she never even called herself spiritual. Like, that
Mhm.
wasn't she is a spiritual person. We all are all spiritual people. But it wasn't something that, she was a businesswoman and she was a mother, and she did all the things that she did in her world, but she'd never really viewed herself as spiritual. So when she started working with the moon and then developed this networking group, and people would view it as this woo woo witchy spiritual kind of thing, she was like, no, like, that's just not how it works.
And
um
it's funny how that's so true over history, though, as well. I mean, I was away up in the mountains last week, and I went to a little bookstore up in the mountains, and I found this adorable little book. So I live in northern Italy, and it was this little book about planting your veggie garden according to the moon cycles. There is
Yes.
not
Yeah.
a single skerrick of mention of witchcraft things. It is literally just waxing phase, plant these things or harvest
Yep.
these things. Waning phase, plant these things or harvest these things, because it's so deeply ingrained into so many cultures over hundreds and
Mhm.
thousands of years that it, like the moon is in the sky. We see it every day. It
Yeah,
doesn't care
yeah,
whether
it's
we're
there.
spiritual or witchy or whatever, but we know that it influences the tides of the ocean, right? Like we
Yeah.
know that it has a magnetic pull on the earth. That's an indisputable fact. Like science has proven that.
Mm.
Um, Fishermen have known that for many, many years. They
Yeah.
fish at the low tides or high tides, depending on what they're trying to catch and where they're trying to go, because
Yep.
certain fish, or things like crayfish, for example, are more active at the full moon because there's more
Mhm.
light. So they're more active in the ocean. So you're more likely to have good catches at the full moon. So,
Makes sense.
it just is, right? And
Yeah.
so I can totally see how your mentor was like, well, this is just a networking thing. Like this is just a thing. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
it's not meant to be this weird and wonderful thing. And one of the things I really wanted with this book was to be able to showcase all different kinds of amazing women like yourself who were using it, whether it was spiritual, whether it was witchy, whether it was super practical, right? But it
Yeah,
can
that's
be
right.
whatever you want it to be. So, on
Yeah.
that note, tell us a little bit about what you're excited to be sharing with us in the Lunar Wisdom book.
Well, it's funny because part of the my thought process initially was I'm relatively new to this. There's so much more to learn. What is it that I can share? I guess this sort of kind of self-doubt kind of comes in, and it's like, oh, I'm not really sure. And the other collaborators on the book, or in the book, have got very different ways of working with the moon or looking at it or using it. And I'm sure many of them have a great deal of experience, and I was still feeling rather newbie, I guess, because it's kind of only clicked in the last 6 months. But that's part of what I want to share, is that you don't have to do bucket loads of study or have heaps and heaps of experience, whatever, to bring this energy into your daily life or your business or both. Because like I said, how you do one thing is how you do everything. um and the other part of it, which has meant a huge amount to me, that I do want to share, is over my time, running my own business, I've been a member of a few different networking groups. Some very kind of strongly patriarchal in their way of working. Others, there was one particularly that was a lovely group, and it was a like mums and bubs kind of group, like when our kids were younger, and that was that to be able to bring your baby to a networking group was like kind of cool, and it was good, but it was there was also a lot of coming and going, and we're meeting in person at that stage as well. Whereas stepping, and there's, with a lot of networking, there's this focus on referrals and having to meet targets and those sorts of things, and which, when you're a busy person or you've got stuff going on in life or whatever, it's hard to have that extra pressure all the time. And while I loved my experiences with all of them, and certainly the people I met, and they brought a lot to myself and my business and all the rest of it, stepping into the Lunar networking was so different because, like you said before, there are other women there who all work in different fields, but we're all, I guess, embracing the same way of working. But the conversations are amazing, the support, the space that is held for each other. I had a really bad experience a little while ago, and actually broke down and howled in the middle of the meeting. They, came around to me and went, "What are you working on?" And I was like, and it all came out, and it wasn't work related. It was kind of personal stuff, but a couple of people sent me messages saying, "Let's have a coffee." I got words of wisdom from other women. Like, it's just this amazingly beautiful space, and the guidance that we get from Georgie, who runs it, but also the guidance from the moon and the universe, we can share all that stuff. And the things like referrals and passing on of business, it happens so naturally and organically. I wouldn't have a clue how much business I would have referred or passed on, and it doesn't actually matter. But I know that if someone comes to me saying that they would like a photographer or a kinesiologist or someone to help them with their finances, I know that I can refer them to these people and they will be cared for in every way. Not just will look after your issue and help you work through it, they will look after them in every possible way. And it's beautiful. So that is something, and in this case, because we do it by Zoom, it's international as well. And I've met some amazing people overseas. I've got some overseas clients through it, and it's just opened up this whole world that I didn't even know existed like a year ago, 2 years ago. So that is part of what I would like to share, is how being part of a group of people who use the cycles of the moon and work with the energy, how much it can help you understand yourself, understand your business, plan all of the things that we need to do as entrepreneurs. You can do that with the moon. So that's what I'm talking about.
I love that so much. I can resonate with that so closely. I mean, I have had and continue to have, and especially with all of the authors coming into this container as well, where we all work with the moon, and some of us in very, very different kinds of ways. It does bring a completely different sense of community, and it is so natural. So I loved what you were saying about how things like the collaborative, the support, the referrals and things like that just flowed naturally. There was no pushing, there was no hustle, there was no grind. It just unfolds exactly the way it's meant to. And since I've started working with the moon too, without being specifically in an organized networking group like that, the kinds of women that I've come into contact with who also work with the moon, it is that meeting of minds. It is, and whether they're working with it intuitively, I really love that you touched on that you don't have to formally be working with the moon for a long time. Right?
No.
You can just feel called to work with the moon. I mean, there are so many women out there who just, look out their window and look up at the sky and like, oh my God, it looks so beautiful tonight.
Yeah.
I know, because I'm also one of those people. But
that's one of the things. My eldest son, he's now 20, and he'll probably kill me for saying this, but when he was little, we had a book of bedtime stories, and it had, I don't know, like probably 365. There's one for every day of the year. And he was tiny, able to talk and whatever, but he memorized every single page that had a picture of the moon on it. And we'd open the book and he would go, page 26, page 104, whatever it might be, page 212. Like, it was always this, and we'd literally every night we'd go through. And if he was overtired, I'm talking he was like 2.5, 3, if he was overtired or he was stressed or whatever, overwhelmed with something, I would take him to the window or walk him outside and we'd look at the moon and he would settle. And it was just, yes, he was having a cuddle and all that sort of thing, but I look back on that now because it was a small period of time, but the moon was part of his childhood, part of our conversations, part of me learning to parent, like all of that kind of came into it. And I've still got that book. I can't throw it out because I love that. That was one of the things that it meant something to him. He now, that's not the space that he is in, which is absolutely fine, but it still means something to set your cat. It still means something to me. And it's that thing, it is always there, and it does bring specialness to our world if we look for it.
And children do it so intuitively and naturally as well. Like, they do it without thinking, they do it without judgment. They're not bringing anything into their relationship with the moon. And I think particularly for women, we feel that connection, but then because we don't know how to use it, or we don't know much about it, or we just don't have time, especially when we hit some of those early days in motherhood when we just don't. I mean, you and I were parenting babies at a very different time than current society does. We didn't have lots of the same things that are available to women now. the resources and the online mothers groups and things like that. They
Yeah.
went around like 16 and 20 years ago. But we have these relationships, like through our children and them exploring the world and seeing the world with wonder. And we may not necessarily have made that connection with ourselves and our relationship with the moon
Yeah.
at that time. But it is so funny that then we get to this point where we are now, right? When we're women in our
Yeah.
40s too, where we start to realize that we've had this relationship with the moon for so long. And even though you might only have been formally practicing working with the moon for 18 months, and even though it may only have clicked for you in the last 6 months, that actually you've really, when you look back at the journey that you've been on, it's been a
Yeah.
constant that's been there for a lot longer in your life. And that so many of us do start with that intuitive relationship, right? And it's only the more we start to bring it in that then we also start to look at and explore other elements and modalities and different ways of working with the moon
Yeah.
to deepen that practice, right?
Absolutely. And it's fascinating. And that's one of the things I'm so excited to read the other contributors' chapters, because I know that there will be so much that I can learn from them as well. And, there might be something that I don't feel comfortable intuitively bringing into my life, but I'll still know about it. Or there might be something I really want to delve into and explore and see how that will work, or bring into my children or business or whatever. Like, there's so much there. And so much we don't know, but they're all of the people writing for the book are, they have their own focus and their own amazing information that they want to share. And I'm super excited to see what that's going to be and see what that can bring, not only to me, but to the world and
Me
everyone who reads the
too.
book.
Me too. I've been getting a few little snippets from some of the authors that they've been sending through or asking, are they on the right track or whatever? And really the answer is, of course, they're on the right track, because whatever story it is that you're feeling called to share is your story to share.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that's coming through, I'm just like fizzing with excitement for what this whole project is going to be, because as I mentioned earlier, what I really wanted to do was I wanted to be bringing together a collection of women to share their stories and really demonstrate that there is no one way to work with the moon.
Yes.
There's only
And no
your
right and
way,
wrong.
right?
Yeah.
And that it's totally okay if the way that I work with the moon looks different to the way that you work with the moon. But also, what you were just saying, that we can all inspire each other, that each of the authors in the group is actually inspiring every single other author, as well as all of the people who read the book. That this is such an incredible opportunity to demonstrate the power of collaboration over competition, because it's not a case of, well, I'm a moon expert and you're a moon expert and she's a moon expert, and now we're all competing because actually we need to prove that our way of doing it is better than everyone else's way of doing it. It's not like that at
Absolutely.
all. It's a case of, well, here's how I do it, here's how she does it. Pick the pieces that resonate for you.
Yeah.
What inspires you? What do you want to incorporate into your practice? And that even each of us gets to read each other's story and be like, oh my God, I love how she does that. Oh, I really want to do that too. I really want to learn more about that. And I really wanted this to be the kind of book that we as authors were so excited to read, that it was the kind of book that we really wanted to have on our bookshelves, the book that was missing from our lives that we wished we had. And I'm so excited that everybody who's coming on board can really lean into and feel this vision and is taking it in some amazing directions. At least one of the other authors has been like, oh, I have some really great information about this. Is this okay to share in the book? Or do you think we could do something like this? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, let's do it. Like, this is amazing. And so, we have currently 11 amazing contributors in the book who have said yes to sharing their story. 11 amazing women. But we still have space for a few more, and I can't wait to see who these other women are that are going to come in and join our circle, and what modalities they use, and whether they've been using it, like for 5 minutes or 5 years or 5
Yeah.
decades, because
And that is something I really wanted to say, because like I said at the beginning, I did have that self-doubt of what can I contribute? Like, I haven't studied this, I haven't as in gone and done a immunology course. It's new to my life, but it has given me something. It has given me something I'd like to share. And I'd love to hear what other people are doing, even if they've only been doing it for 5 minutes, because it will
Yeah.
help everybody learn and grow. And that's so important.
Yes. And I would love to showcase so many different kinds of women from, I mean, I am trained in immunology. I love immunology, and there are a couple of other women who've got a background in immunology who are contributing. But I'd also love to have somebody who does garden with the moon cycles come in and
Yes.
share that
Yeah.
herbal wisdom, or that seed sowing by the cycles of the moon, or women who are coming in and bringing that sacred womb healing, or how they
Yes.
use cacao, or things even like Ayurveda and yoga. Or even if they're using other modalities, things like human design, but applying that and incorporating that into their lives using the moon cycles, because there are
Yeah.
so many different things that people are doing that are so popular out there at the moment, or so different. It doesn't have to be popular. It might be, or it could be even somebody who's come from a a family lineage of passed down folklore and information. That would be amazing, because those old traditions, I think, are
Yeah.
just as important to preserve as bringing in new modalities and things like that. So I can't wait to see who comes and joins us. And for anybody out there who might be watching this and thinking, oh, I really want to share my story of working with the moon, please do reach out. DM Ruth if you want, if you know Ruth.
Absolutely.
If you're coming to us through Ruth's network, feel free to message her and just say, look, what's the go? How do I get involved? Or contact me directly. I will be dropping links to this in, depending on which platform you're in, it will be in the comments most likely, or possibly in the show notes. But if you have a story to share, if you've been inspired by what we've been talking about today and you would love to be a part of this, if you would love to join Ruth and I and be part of our circle of lunar loving sisters, then we would love to have you. So find out more about what that entails. We are going to be launching the book on the new moon eclipse in Scorpio on the 25th of October, which we're so excited about, because
Beautiful.
the new moons are all about setting intentions, and we've literally just had the new moon in Scorpio last week. So we are in this waxing phase. It is all about, oh, look, you can see my cat in the background. It is all about taking action and being inspired. So if you are feeling inspired, the waxing moon is definitely telling you this is the time to take action, to set your intentions, to decide that maybe this is the year that you are meant to become a published author. And our beautiful Ruth here is actually going to become a 2-time author this year, because she's got another book project on the go, which is so exciting. And I can't wait to read your other book as well.
And you know how funny it is with the divine timing is I had set an intention in October last year that because I have a book that I'm writing at the moment, two actually, and I had decided what I had said was I was going to be a published author by November this year. But my book is still percolating, it's taking its time. And I started about, I don't know, 4 months ago, started doing this whole, I'm never going to get it done, it's never going to be finished. And I'd said I was going to publish it. And then these two beautiful opportunities came up to be involved in your book and the other one. And yours will be published before my date. So the intention that I set is actually completely coming, just not in the way that I thought that it would, but it's come in such a beautiful way because I've met you and other people, and I'm talking about things that mean so much, and can help other people. And whether it's through my writing or through the work I do, that's what I love to do as well. So it's just a beautiful example. And I didn't even know the date when we first spoke. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh my God.
And isn't it funny
Amazing.
how these things that we set, the intentions that we put out into the universe, the intentions that you put out into the universe last year, we can manifest them. We do bring into our lives the things that we are looking for, but they don't always look like what we think they were going to look like. And I feel like this is actually one of the most important tenets of manifestation in and of itself, is recognizing that we have to leave the door open for the universe to bring us opportunities that may be 100% perfect for us, that may give us exactly what we want, even if it doesn't look the way we thought it was going to.
Yes.
And one of the things that really blocks us more than anything is being so rigid in our belief that it has to look a certain way and that nothing except this vision of what it should look like will do, that's when we close ourselves off, and that's when we block our manifesting, because we aren't open to receiving new opportunities or different ways to get there. And does that mean that you're not going to publish your 2 solo books? Of course not.
Absolutely not.
And in fact, this may be an incredible way for you to start building your author platform, so that when you broaden your networks, find people who read and resonate your stories, who are like, oh my God, yes, I want to read everything she's ever written, right? Who then, when your other books come out, are like, yes, sign me up. I want to know more. Let me know all of the things. And this is exactly it, taking that leap of faith and allowing the universe to, bring it to you in a different way, that yes, you
And
will be a
trusting.
published author before November. Was it your
And
solo book? No, but it's amazing.
Doesn't matter. And it's funny how it came about, because there'd been a new, I'd set some intentions in the New Moon networking meeting, and done some work around them afterwards. And the way that I tend to do it is I'll do that, and then I kind of like, I put it up on my wall, but it's not like I read it every day or whatever. It's just there. And a couple of weeks after that, I got COVID, and I hadn't had it before, and I was quite ill. And I spent a few days by myself, feeling miserable and all the rest of it. And I was very much in that mindset of, this is not fair, and now I'm behind in work, and why do I feel this way? And I was kind of struggling with trying to keep on top of everything. And anyway, got through it. That was fine. Stepped back into life again. And then we had a full moon meeting, and I looked at the thing, and on my actions, I had written, for the new moon meeting, I had written rest, recuperate, sleep, because I was exhausted at the time. Sleep, study, take care of myself, like things that I hadn't been focusing on in that kind of self-care thing. That's what I'd written. And I was like, man, I need to be careful with this manifesting, because I said this is what I want. And that's actually what I got, because for 2 weeks I was on the couch really unwell. But in that 2 weeks is when I was sitting scrolling through Facebook and looking into different things. I might scroll, but I don't normally really delve into things on social media because busy. But that is where I came across your book. It's where I stepped into a different networking group that's run purely on Facebook, where I've met some other people I've had conversations with. I've picked up some editing work through it. So again, I intentionally manifest COVID in 2 weeks on the couch. But what came from that was this massive opening that has led me down a path that I hadn't expected 2 months ago. And it's amazing.
Oh, I love that. I didn't have COVID, but I did get food poisoning just in time for my birthday. And even though, again, I had to literally take time to relax and rest and recuperate and slow down. And funnily enough, it happened just after the full moon. So it was waning phase, 100%. I was like out for the count during the waning phase, when it was all about the internal stuff.
Yeah.
And I did really have to let go of the things that didn't matter anymore, like really release and shared. There were some
Yep.
relationships that I'd been holding on to that really just weren't aligned anymore. Like some business relationships and things like that. There was, I really pulled back from social media, but where I was showing up and the things that still mattered, you know, during that time, even though I was so sick, we managed to bring in 3 new authors into the
Wow.
book collaboration. So again,
Yeah.
that sometimes we manifest these things in ways that aren't always super fun, because let me tell you, highly do not recommend food poisoning. Do
No,
not
it's not fun.
recommend food poisoning. But it did force me to slow down, and it did force me to let go of things, and it did force me to really focus on the things that mattered, the
Yeah.
things that I cared about. And that was where I showed up. And that was the bare minimum that I was doing to get through. But again, met some beautiful people,
Yeah.
collaborated, had opportunities to collaborate and connect with other people related to the things. In fact, even um, so I've got a new thing that's it's related to Gemini Moon Press, but it's a collaboration with another indie publisher. We're launching
Wow.
a group called the Women Writing Intentionally Collective.
Yeah.
And so obviously all of the Gemini Moon Press authors will have access to it, and all of her authors will also have access to it. But it's also for all women who want to write intentionally, and it is a free space. It's not a
Yeah.
paid space.
Beautiful.
And it's all about coming together and being inspired to write, and to write intentionally. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether you want to be a novelist, whether you want to write nonfiction, whether you just want to write content, or, like
And that,
ebooks, or
yeah.
do whatever it is that you want to do, however it is that you want to write,
Mm.
coming together in a safe, supportive space,
Yeah.
but also in a way where you can learn some of the other skills about publishing, and having people who are experts like
Amazing.
yourself come in and talk about copywriting, or talk about
Mm.
editing, or things that people might want to learn or brush up their skills and things like that. And again, do it in a way where it is about the
Mm.
collective sharing of wisdom, and the
Yeah.
collective doing of the things without judgment or competition, or, you know,
Mm.
I feel so much like it is an opportunity for us to do the work around healing the wounds, the healer wounds, the sister
Yeah.
wounds, the witch wounds, the mother wounds, all of that, particularly the sister wound. Obviously, when women are coming together and collaborating, it has been so dangerous for us over time,
Yeah.
like over so many years. And this is an opportunity for us to stop getting caught up in the patriarchal ways of doing things,
Yeah.
and being driven by this, well, there can only be one person at the top. And
Yeah.
the only way that I can be the best is if I'm better than all of you.
And everyone else. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
I personally believe, and I've been running a Facebook group for many years now called Empowered Women Rise, and I really do believe that when one rises, we actually raise the tide for all boats, that when we lift each other up, it's not a case of there's only 8 pieces of the pie, so only 8 people can eat. It's a case of let's just make the pie bigger, right?
Yeah.
And feed more
Yeah.
people. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, super excited about what's coming up. But again, what I was saying
Absolutely.
was, while I was sick, my business partner and I, we were really leaning into and building out this idea of this new vision that we had for how we wanted to revolutionize the publishing and writing industry for women
Yay.
authors specifically.
Woohoo!
And, again, it was taking that time to rest and relax and really lean into what mattered.
Yeah.
So thank you, Waning Moon Cycle,
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
throwing me in
Yes.
the deep end.
And be careful of how you manifest.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's good
Yeah.
to be specific, but
Yeah.
do
But
still
then
keep
other times
open.
it's good to It's that awareness that we were talking about at the
Yeah.
beginning of this conversation. It's that awareness of, while I was in this state of, why do I have to be sick? And, oh, this is affecting my life. And then it was like, oh, man, that's okay. Because now I see why this happened. And it's okay that it's happened. And look what's opened up. Like, and that gratitude is so
Mm,
important as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Gratitude is one of my favorite things. I really do think that it's one of the 5 pillars of manifestation. And it's funny because these were all things I was doing before I started working with the moon cycles
Yeah.
with my clients. And when I got into moonology, that was actually one of the things where I was like, this is so aligned because everything that I'm doing and everything that I've been doing with my clients actually
Yeah.
matches to a moon phase. And so forgiveness and letting go and gratitude work are,
Yeah.
in my opinion, 2 of the foundational pillars of manifestation, because if
Mm.
we are not willing to change our perspective, like what you were just
Yep.
touching on there, you can sit there and think, "This is so unfair, everything's going wrong. Why is this happening to me?" Or you can look and recognize that actually some amazing opportunities came out of it,
Mm.
even
And
though you felt dreadful.
yeah. And it was happening for me. So rather than
Mhm.
being sitting in resistance and anger and frustration and all of those things, to be able to turn around and go, no, this is actually a good thing, and it's fine. And now I've had COVID, so now I'm not scared of having COVID anyway. And um, and for a period of time I'll be immune, so that's a good thing as well. But from what it's opened up for me personally and professionally and whatever, like I'm so thankful that that couple of weeks actually happened the way that it did. And it's also that being aware that it's okay to sit in the dark and it's okay to
Mm.
feel all the feelings and let them, because I had no resistance when I was quite unwell, and I had no resistance, but to let them move through. And if I needed to cry or I needed to be angry or I needed to feel whatever I needed to feel, it was okay. And it went through, and then deep breath and okay, what's next? What's going on? And it was a really good example of, for me to experience that, because that again is part of what I've learned over the last 18 months. And not being resistant has probably been the thing that I've been most resistant to.
Mm.
Because, as a mother of 4, I was a bit of a, we were busy, we had so much sport on and whatever before COVID, and all the lockdowns and whatever. But I was a very go, go, go kind of person and always busy and stopping, like, no, you can't do that. Um, and I guess coming into learning about this and working with the moon through the pandemic when everything had sort of slowed down anyway, again, it was divine timing that it all happened the way it did. And to learn, to finally learn that lesson of what it means to stop resisting and go with that flow was, it was pretty powerful. It was
Yes,
good.
and it
Yeah.
it's so important to move through and allow those emotions to move through you,
Yeah.
because so I actually just recorded on Friday a podcast episode with an amazing friend of mine, and we were talking about spiritual bypassing, which is a topic that
Mm.
we've been meaning to record this podcast episode for a year. Um, but one of the things that is unfortunately really common at the moment is people bypassing these feelings, focusing on,
Mm.
good vibes only, a bit of the toxic
Yes.
positivity,
Yeah.
like, let's not talk about the negative, let's avoid all of these things. And so I did a lot of research on this last year for an article that I wrote and for one of my uni assignments. And as a coping strategy in the short term, and like what we were all going through, especially at the start of the pandemic when nobody knew what
Mm.
was going on and it was all so
Yep.
unknown and everyone was so afraid. Spiritual bypassing in and of itself as a short term coping strategy is not necessarily a bad thing. It can sometimes be
Yep.
a critical part of our actual spiritual development and growth.
Mhm.
The issue is when it stops being a short term strategy and becomes a habit, when it becomes a long term
Yeah.
part of what we're doing, because ironically, focusing only on the good and refusing to actually work through to like actively resisting, to use your word, to avoid the
Yeah.
emotional pain, the emotional trauma, or whatever that we are going through. ignoring the fact that we are hustling and grinding and burning out, ignoring all of those things, actually, the long-term consequences of that are more isolation, more burnout. In fact, the spiritual awakenings people might be having that are allowing them to transcend and avoid the details because they're above it now actually is a symptom of spiritual bypassing that increases the feeling of disconnection and actually, ironically, hampers their true spiritual growth.
Yeah.
And this is
Because it's
actually
when
like
you're in that. Go on.
yeah. I was just going to say, and this is something that it's a phenomenon that they have studied. They've done lots of clinical studies about this over many years, not just the pandemic. But yeah, so the only way out is through. The only way to get through is to allow ourselves to experience these feelings so that we can release them and let them go and give them that opportunity, like to cry and let it out. You know, it doesn't feel good to hold it in.
And there is no light without darkness. You don't experience true joy unless you've experienced grief and sadness. Like there's the moon goes from light to dark and then keeps doing it and keeps doing it. And so do we. It's, you know, trees lose their leaves in winter and then they grow again in spring. Like it's literally part of life cycles and the universe. And it's so freeing to see things in that way and go, okay, you know, things are rotten at the moment and I'm hurt or I'm sad or I'm angry or I'm frustrated or whatever those feelings might be, but it's okay. And you can be, and when you are in that uncomfortable, even if you're like I was before this, oh, I'm nervous, I've never done this before, but in that I could have gone, no, Tracy, no, I don't want to do it, like I've never done this, I feel really uncomfortable doing it. But doing it and experiencing it is where the growth happens. And sure, it's a little uncomfortable, but you know, right now I'm doing the whole let's do this again because it's good. It's been such an amazing experience. And we can take that into all parts of our lives as well. And as I think we have been conditioned, I haven't done the research you have, but there is a conditioning around not feeling uncomfortable, and uncomfortable is bad, but it's actually not. Because when obviously, you know, if you're in danger, that's different. But again, feeling uncomfortable when you're in danger is a sign that you need to get yourself to safety or take steps to do whatever you need to do to be safe. But you can be uncomfortable and still learn and grow and move through that uncomfortable to comfortable, and then keep doing that cycle as long as you need to as well. So
yeah, and that was such a good metaphor there, or example, illustration of how it works, because it is the cycle. You know, the moon does go from dark to light and then back to dark again as we see it growing bigger in the sky and getting smaller and then disappearing from view. We have those same cycles within us in terms of our emotional cycles, the dark night of the soul that people refer to. But it doesn't mean that the moon is never going to rise again. It doesn't mean that the sun is never going to rise again. But that cycle, and I love that you also brought the seasons into it, because that's another part of the wider cycle of life, is how like the moon phases and the seasons link together, and that it's okay to feel those feelings and go into the depths of that darkness, because things will come back out the other side again if you are willing to, you know, explore those things, if you're willing to also seek the help that you need. Because I think it's also really important to recognize that even when you're working with the moon and even when you're doing the shadow work that comes with it, it's very, very important to make sure that you are surrounding yourself with the right support. And whether that is, you know, friends and family, whether it is biz besties, whether it is counseling and psychological support, because it doesn't matter what actual support you need, whether it is for mental health, whether it is for business growth, whether it is for emotional support. It is so important to make sure that we remember that we don't have to do this alone.
Yeah. And then in that learning that we go through, when we go through the darkness and then step into that light, we can then use that light to shine on someone else who's in the bad way. We can use our experiences to help support other people and expand that circle or create a new circle or whatever. But I'm a huge believer in the importance of community, particularly with raising 4 kids.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yes, and being part of those communities, whether it was kinder or school or sport or dance or whatever it may be. A lot of those people I don't see anymore because my kids are older, but they were a huge part of my life, my children's life, my family life, and beautiful memories. And again, things that you can learn and support I've had from people along the way and support I've given to people along the way. Again, it's a cyclical thing. And as women, we tend to do that quite naturally.
Mm,
Yeah, and I think that is something that that power of, like we said way back at the start of this, the power of collaboration and co-creation is huge. And it's something that I've really brought into my business over the last year as well. The traditional way of doing website copy is you have a client brief and then you go through it all and then you go away and you write the copy and then you send the draft and then they send it back with corrections. You might have another meeting and that goes backwards and forwards. I'm now working with clients where we sit on Zoom calls together and create in a Google Doc at the same time. So they are so involved and they're talking about their business or their book, whatever it is that they're writing about. And we're working on it together and we're discussing those words together and we edit parts together. And it's so much stronger and so much more real. It's beautiful. It's very exciting as well. But yeah, I love that.
that's so good. I think
Mm,
so many of us yearn for that sense of community. I think it is very deeply
mm,
ingrained for women to have that desire to be a part of a
mm.
collective of women. But the problem is that we have been, like made to feel that some of these things are not okay,
Yeah.
that it is competitive, that it's not safe, that it's whatever else, or that we don't fit in, that we aren't worthy
Mm.
enough. That I remember you were talking about mothers group and kinder and things like that. When my kids were tiny, we moved house. And I
Mm.
moved into a community, in fact, that kind of like a little town that my husband had grown up in. And some of the
Mhm.
women who were in my playgroup were women that my husband had gone to primary school with. And I remember joining, and my son was 15 months old. I was pregnant with my daughter, and I felt like I didn't fit in because
Mm.
some of them had known each other, like, since the days their babies were
Forever.
born, like, in the
Yeah.
hospital, kind of like where they'd all been paired up. And I was like, "I'm never gonna fit into this group because they've all known each other for 15 months." Like, they've known each other for forever.
Yeah, or
And
since
I just
kinder or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, and I just don't fit. And it did, it took a while.
Mm.
In fact, about 3 months later, actually, we went out for a mummies only Christmas dinner night out. So
Nice.
all of the husbands looked after the kids, and we went to a local pub. And I was pregnant, obviously, so I wasn't drinking. But one of the mums who had gone to primary school with my husband, funnily enough, she had a 3-month-old. It was her first time drinking in, like, in a very long
Yep.
time. So she was like a glass and a half Cadbury kid. It didn't take long. And we were talking about, I forget exactly how it led into it, but we were talking about feeling uncomfortable moving into new spaces and feeling
Mhm.
uncertain and lacking confidence and things like that. And I, again, feeling like I was a new part of the group, I was like, oh, like, I felt like that too. I was, like, I really was worried when I first joined the group, and I felt really uncomfortable and I didn't know anybody, and I felt like I didn't belong and I didn't fit in. And then this girl turns around and she's like, "You, oh my god, you could talk the hind leg off a horse." Because when I get nervous, I babble.
You talk.
Um, I babble to cover the uncomfortable bits.
Yeah.
Um, and but in that moment when she said that, it felt like a knife in my heart because, of course, I was completely sober, like everyone. She was
Yeah,
young,
yeah.
she doesn't even remember saying it. But I was just like, "Oh my god." am I ever even going to be able to go back to this group and show my face again? Because, oh my God, like, this is what they think of me.
I talk too
Ironically,
much.
yeah, like I talk too much. Ironically, she's one of my best friends now. She's one of my best friends, and we have laughed about that moment so many times over the
Yeah.
years, but we didn't become best friends because of that night. It
Mm.
took us another 18 months because it wasn't until our kids went off to three-year-old kinder that we took our friendship out of that 2-hour
Mhm.
session on a
Yeah.
Tuesday morning in this,
Yeah.
community hall with the toys where the kids were just playing. And we were going and we were dropping them off at kinder, and we only had 2.5 hours between when we dropped them off and when we had to pick them up. And where
Yeah.
it was like a 20-minute drive from where we lived, because it was like in the next sort of suburb
Mhm.
over. Because we lived up in the hills. So it took 15 minutes just to get out of the hills. And so there was no point driving home and then driving back again. So we used to go, so a group of us decided we would just go and have coffee or go and do our grocery shopping or go to Big W or Target and just, browse, because
Yeah.
we had the little ones with us as well. And we started going for coffee while the older ones, while the 3-year-olds were
Yeah.
at kinder.
Kinder.
And that was when we bonded. It was that
Mhm.
time together where we took it outside of the classroom, so to speak. And
Yep.
there were more of us initially, but it came down to a core group of 5 of us that really bonded and became friends. And then after that, we realized we all were very crafty. We all liked sewing. So we
Mhm.
started, instead of going and always just, I mean, we did for quite a while when had coffee in a coffee shop, but then we just started going to, well, the girl who lived closest to the kindergarten, we would rock up at her house with our sewing machines in our cars, and we would have sewing play dates while the kids were at kinder, and then
That's
we'd all
amazing.
jump back in the car, drive back to kinder, pick the little ones up. And depending on who had to do what, some of us sometimes went back and like kept, did things for a little bit longer, or we just went home. And that was how we bonded. But it was this sense of community. And I can honestly
Yeah.
say that before I met these particular women, I had had a new mums group when I had first had my baby in the suburb I was living at that time. And we did form a friendship, but even before I had kids, I never really had close groups of lots of women. I
Yeah.
had 1 or 2 friends, but I had a lot of guy friends, and most of the friendships I had with women were, teenage years, but were quite toxic, like where
Yep.
they were, the foundation of those friendships was very
Mm.
unhealthy. And for me, it wasn't until I had kids that I started developing like normal female friendships with women that
Yeah.
weren't based on this idea of competition. And so I feel like so many women are searching for this sense of community, and not
Mm.
everybody, I recognize not everybody had the experience that I did with my playgroup. Some of the other girls that we knew, other mums we knew who then joined different session times, were like, oh my God, I fucking hate playgroup. Like, I don't want to hang out with these bitches. Like, this group is awful. So I got lucky because we got the good group. But the thing is that so many of us we're searching for this. We're
Yeah.
searching for this sense of community. And this is one of the things that working with the moon has
Mm.
allowed so many women to do in a low pressure way, in a lack of competition way, because it is all
Yeah.
about expansion and
Mhm.
growth and accepting the energetic cycles of, like our own cycles, our own emotional cycles and things like that, but also recognizing that we can't just be on the go all the time, and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that we
Mm.
can't be successful in business,
That's
right? And
true.
this is
Yeah.
so important to recognize that, while the popular business coaches and Instagram coaches and funnel coaches and website coaches and
Yep.
like whoever it is that's selling a program and a training for, you have to be on TikTok or you're never going to be a success, or if you're not making reels, you're going to be a failure on Instagram, or whatever it is, that There are definitely people who buy into that. It's very masculine, patriarchal based paradigm, but it's not the only way to be successful. Yes, it works for lots of people. Right. But for the people, for the women who are just like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. That the whole idea of that exhausts me. Like, I'm exhausted just thinking about it. In fact, maybe I just can't even start a business because I just do not have the energy to be on every platform. I do not have the time to learn all of those things or whatever. It's okay. You don't have to do that.
Yeah.
There are other women out there who are doing differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I was thinking as you were talking then, one of the things that I loved about stepping into that space of talking to other people about the moon is that it's kind of like I learned a language that I didn't know I needed to learn, and I kind of knew about it, but then I learned the way of verbalizing it and then relating it to business and marketing and the shoulds that exist. And, you should do 5 Instagram posts a week and they should be about this, and not about this, and all those sorts of things. So I did all those courses when I started my business like 5, 6 years ago. But it never felt right. And even when I did my copywriting studies, it was about pain points and, identify and then solve and those sorts of words. And like, I get it, but it just didn't feel right. And it wasn't until I started speaking to people, talking about energy, talking about moon cycles, talking about these community and collaboration, and most of them are women, not all, but most of them have been, that I started recognizing how I could bring that into my business. And it was like being in a room full of people who spoke the same language. And that was beautiful. Like it was such a good experience to but be able to be practicing all of these things together and do the whole, hey, I tried this and I tried that, but it didn't work. And can you support me? I'm going to be one of the ladies in our group released a book earlier on this year in February, and she had so much support from everyone else in there. And yeah, it's there is so much to be said for stepping into that space with like-minded people and learning and growing and supporting each other. Which really, with your mother group example, that's what it should be. It takes a village. But a lot of people don't have that. And whether that village is for raising children or your business or for yourself, it doesn't have to necessarily be about those things, but to have people that you can talk to and relate to and who get you and hear you and support you, even in the bad times, it's really what it's all about.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And I think that's so important to recognize that support system, whether it's for parenting or whether it's for business, those people who are going to love you and support you no matter what, who are going to be there for you, who are going to just light the way when you're in the darkness or when you have the opportunity to light the way for them. That is so powerful and it is so beautiful. And it is something, just really diving back to what you said at the very beginning, more people need to know about this. We need to normalize this. It needs to be something that everybody is, recognizing as a valid way to run businesses, to live our lives, and to do it, that it's not just that we're becoming, raving feminists, or that we don't know that we are just flouting the rules of business or whatever, but that it's okay for us to do it differently. It's okay to do it in a way that's aligned for us.
Yeah, and feels right.
Because when we're leaning into that intuition, like that is our best, our best compass for what actions to take, right? Does this feel good in my body? Am I feeling resistance? And why am I feeling resistance? Getting curious enough to ask the questions like, why do I not want to do this? Why do I not want to show up here? What about this feels wrong? Like, do I feel like pushing pain points in my copy feels really icky to me? And why is that? You know what? Actually, that's not an aligned way for me to do it. I'm going to do it differently. And it's not that I'm doing it wrong. It's that I'm just doing it in a way that better resonates for me and better resonates for my ideal clients.
Yeah. And then they come.
It
just hopefully, but it just it does happen, because when you're working with clients that you don't have that alignment with, well, for me anyway, when I have done that in the past, it does create discord and difficulty. And sure, I can write the copy, but does it really represent them the way it needs to be? Like, is it what they are wanting, paying for, desire? Like, whereas when I'm working collaboratively with people writing their copy, and there's a lot of coaching goes into that as well, and work in between our sessions and whatever, but they are happy, and there is that alignment. And it's not for everyone, absolutely, but that's fine, because they can go and work with someone that they align with, and they want to do it that way. Whereas I'll just, but stepping into that space of being brave enough to go, no, I want to do it differently, and I think this is how I want to do it. And thankfully, when I first stepped into doing collaborative website writing coaching, I had an amazing client I'd worked with for some blogs, and she needed to do her website, and she was like, I'll be a guinea pig. Let's do it together. And it was such an empowering experience, because I was nervous, and I had to work through the process myself and see how it panned out. And interestingly, it's different with everyone, obviously, but she was willing to take a risk as well, which was so beautiful, because while I knew what I wanted to do, but there was a little, am I going to be able to do it? Is it going to work? I guess a little bit of self-doubt or lacking of trust, whatever. She was like, no, I believe in you. Let's do this. And by the end of the 6 weeks, it was amazing. So that
So
is how we
good.
can support each other. Yeah.
So good. So if people wanted to get in contact with you in between now and when the book comes out on the 25th of October, how can people connect with you if they love everything that you've said and really want to find out more, or might even be looking to have their websites redone? How can they get in contact with you?
Well, my website is currently under development, but you can still contact me through that. So that's
So I will put all the
Publications.
links in the comments as well. So
Cool. Hey, excellent. So yeah, through my website or Facebook, Instagram, but I don't tend to go on Instagram enough, according to my children. So pretty much Facebook and website would be the two best ones to find me. Just send me an email or whatever, and yeah, I'd be happy to chat to anyone.
Amazing. Well, we are all so looking forward to you sharing your magic and wisdom and knowledge about how you work with the moon and what you have to share with us. I know I'm excited, and I know a lot of the other authors are really getting excited about seeing everybody talk and share a little bit about their magic, things that have been coming through in our author group, and, when everyone's been, chatting and absorbing things. I know everybody is so excited. So
it's such a fun space. It's such a lovely place to be.
It is. Well, and again, because we are all in a very similar energetic space, right? Like it just, I like to think, and because I have been very conscious about curating people from an energetic standpoint who I do believe are very aligned with the, we all have different methodologies, we all have different backgrounds, we all come at it from different points. But I feel like it's really important that each of the people coming in is energetically aligned with the energy of the group, and that I feel like they're going to help to lift and inspire everybody else, but also that they're open to being inspired by others, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
So yes, if you have been watching this and you feel like you would love to lean into our energy as well, that you love Ruth and you would love to write alongside her, if you have loved the method in my madness, please come and join us. We are still looking for incredible contributors to our book. And like we've covered today, there are lots of different ways to work with the moon. There is not just one single way to do it. And we would love to hear about how you do it, because it is inspiring and expansive for everybody. So I will drop all of the relevant links either in the comments or the show notes, depending on which platform you are watching this video on. If you are catching the replay, do feel like you can leave a comment, and Ruth and I will come back to you as we can. We would love to thank you for watching. And Ruth, thank you so much for coming and sharing a little bit about you and your story and what magic you are planning to share with us in the book. I can't wait. Honestly, this baby has been in my heart and in my mind for so long
Amazing.
now. And seeing it start to come together and take shape and develop a life of its own is just,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, it is beyond everything.
Goosebumps. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
thanks,
Well, thank you very
everybody.
much for having me. Thank you to everyone for watching.
And we'll
Yes.
see you again soon.
No worries.